Should you buy Prey in 2022? Prey is one of those games I was always interested in playing due to the crazy amount of praise it got from fans and critics, despite the fact Prey didn't really sell that well. I didn't really know what I was walking into when it came to Prey, but let me tell you, this is one of the most intriguing, creative, entertaining, and most importantly frustrating experiences I've ever experienced. We'll be talking about, as usual, the story, combat, stealth, customization, etc. And you can skip to the timestamps below to the bits you actually care about. And there'll be a minimal amount of spoilers, because Prey is one of those games that the less you know about Prey, the better. Prey 2017 is set on the Talos 1, a ship in space that is overrun by mysterious alien creatures. You play as Morgan Yu, and it's your job to explore Talos 1 and try to put the pieces together to find out where these creatures actually came from, and ultimately how to defeat them. That's about all I could say without spoiling anything, because despite the fact that there are almost no cutscenes, there's a lot of environmental storytelling, and plenty of that could potentially give away some vital plot points that you should discover for yourself if you do plan to play Prey after this review. The story is pretty good, it's not conventional at all, and it's all told in a way that most games today steer far away from. How is this story told, I hear you ask? Well, Prey is said to be an action-adventure game, but after playing it, it's more of an action-horror RPG, and the RPG is important here. Prey is not advertised as a RPG, it's more of an immersive sim action-adventure type game, at least that's what's advertised. You know the type, Bioshock, etc, etc, and yes, this game has a lot of similarities to Bioshock. But it's one of the best RPG games I have played in a long time. Now, it's not a full-blown RPG, but Prey doesn't go down, well, here's the good choices and here's the bad choices routine that a lot of these RPG games tend to go down. Everything that happens throughout the story feels completely natural, well, apart from the alien creatures, obviously.
Wait! What are you doing? Stop! Stop, damn you! Stop!
Prey has more endings than some RPG games, and that is one hell of a surprise, and I was so happy to find that out, and to craft a story as good as this while having RPG elements deserves a lot of praise. The RPG stuff in this game, it's so natural. It's not one of those, oh, here's a moment, you have to choose a dialogue option. It's more, do you want to save these people? And the route you go down will naturally decide if they kind of perish or live. It's hard to explain, but when you play it, you do realize, okay, this is a choice to make, but it feels so natural that you don't feel like you're being forced into it. You can kind of do it accidentally in a lot of ways. I can't really explain it very well. Now, they didn't stick the landing for the ending that is basically forced on you, which sucked in my opinion, but everything else is pretty much a masterclass in how stories in games like Prey should be told. Environmental storytelling is literally around every corner. Talos 1, while mostly dead, feels more alive than most open worlds. Rooms are full of character, corridors are eerie and stained with blood, cubicles are ripped and torn apart, bodies lay dead in medical centers, and some flow into the unknown black hole that is space. If the main plot sucked, which it doesn't by the way, then I would have been satisfied alone with the environmental storytelling at play here. It's nothing less than masterful. If that wasn't enough, every piece of information you find or collect or even piece together will constantly be giving you clues as to how this story is going to play out until the final 2 hours of the game. But we'll get to those final 2 hours because it's probably the most disappointing part of the whole experience. Arcane did a phenomenal job bringing the Talos 1 to life while letting it remain dead for the most part. I haven't been this intrigued or motivated, is a better word for it, to explore a game like this in such a long time. Sure, the script could have been a little bit better and a little bit tighter at times, and it can get a little cliche, especially after the forced ending, but overall the story is pretty great. Yes, I know I've spent more time talking about the world of Prey or the Talos 1 more than the story, but like I said, I don't want to spoil anything. Now, the last 2 hours of Prey really lost me. Something happens that completely changes the direction of the story and leaves a lot of plot holes and questions that really piss me off. And once this happens, the entire game shifts into that action-adventure type game that it was advertised as, which is a shame, but I get it. Arcane wanted to end this game with a bang, and yeah, they definitely ended the game with a bang, at least for me. Unfortunately, it just got a little cliche towards the end. Most of my criticisms of those last 2 hours are actually purely my fault. I looked up some of the other endings and it kind of blew me away because of the amount of control you really have over the ending of this game, except the forced ending, which doesn't make sense when I talk about it, but when you play the game, you'll understand. But yeah, you do have like 6 or 7 like main endings that doesn't include all the mini decisions you make as you pass by the various people that are still alive on Talos 1 and the ones that aren't alive. So Prey's story for me is just simply phenomenal, and I might just play it again to see what I can change or discover. Basically, the story's really good. Prey's gameplay is simply incredible. The level design is some of the best I have ever experienced. The pacing is top notch. The enemy design, while a little samey, is varied, and the skill trees and level of choice you have is for me now the industry standard. Combat is just great, while a little limited depending on how you play. You have to conserve your ammo, avoid enemies, and find creative and risky ways to take out your enemies while also trying to avoid being ambushed by hidden enemies. Enemy variety is decent, but the problem comes with how the enemies look. They all look very similar. They're like black floating goo, like think the symbiote from Spider-Man 3, but bigger. And it can be quite hard to distinguish one enemy type from another, which can get pretty irritating. But each enemy type requires a different kind of tactic to take out, sometimes requiring full-on action or simply staying still to try and hear an enemy's movements to find their position. The mimics, that we'll talk about them in a minute. You're always on your toes, and it's just so addictive despite how infuriating it can be at times. My personal favourite enemy type are the mimics, which, as the name suggests, mimic pretty much every item in the game. They hide in plain sight, ready to jump out at you at any point, which just adds a whole new level of tension. Not even Alien Isolation could get out of me.
Jesus Christ.
Other enemy types are less interesting, but not to the point where you get sick of taking them on, but if there is one area that needed innovation, it is enemy design. The mimics are the standout enemies due to how cool they simply are. It's like playing prop hunt, but in space. It's awesome. But the other enemy types, it really is basically like playing Bioshock or something. You got your shotgun, you throw an EMP grenade, or you freeze time, or, well, without spoiling too much, and you shoot them. That's about it, unfortunately. I did really want some more creative decisions when it comes to enemy abilities, I guess. The best part of Prey's gameplay loop is the fact you basically get 2 games in one hit, very similar to Dying Light, my last review, which is a bit odd. The first 3 to 4 hours of my experience is a full-blown horror game. You have almost no supplies and will be killed almost instantly, which is where most of my frustration came from. Prey does a pretty poor job in explaining how the combat and crafting system work together. You have to loot pretty much everything you come across to then construct ammo for your weapons to stand a fighting chance. Now, in hindsight, would I have wanted them to explain how it works? Not really. Discovering how to beat the game was simply a joy. I can't explain how good it felt finally figuring out how to craft a stupid amount of ammo for my pistol and shotgun. Once you figure that out though, the game does turn into more of an action-adventure type game that it was advertised as. The final 2 hours pretty much force it, but you can do it a lot earlier if you figure this out. Like I said, it's basically 2 games in one. Combat is frustrating though. You're going to die a lot, and I mean a lot. And sometimes it's some of the dumbest things that can kill you, like running through a room you've gone through 15 times only to die to an electrical appliance that takes almost all of your health in one go, which was really annoying. But there are ways to counter this with the glue gun and a few others. That's mainly you rushing around. That's what I did. I rushed around in the final like 2-3 hours, like I've said, and I kept getting killed by the electrical things that are broken that can kill you pretty much instantly. It was really annoying, but you know, it is what it is. I would recommend playing Prey as a stealth game first and then slowly get more confident with direct confrontations. Don't worry, the stealth isn't tacked on. In fact, I think it's the best part of the entire game. The stealth is actually really fun for the most part. Outsmarting those alien creatures is really fun to pull off, and well, this is Arcane Studios, the team that made the Dishonored franchise. They know how to make good stealth games. I haven't played Deathloop yet, though. Apparently that was really bad. I've got to play that at some point. This is a good time to talk about level design. The level design is simply perfect. I love the level design here. It's probably the best level design I've ever had the pleasure of exploring. Think Dishonored, but times it by 10. There are so many ways to tackle your objectives and can be done in almost any order you want apart from the main missions. Well, actually that's a lie, some of the main missions give you even more options than usual. It's simply jaw-dropping how well crafted the level design is. You have so many abilities in your arsenal, but you can only use so many in your first playthrough, so every room on the Talos 1 has to accommodate for that. So instead of making every room a boring linear door path, Arcane instead placed ways to get in and out of rooms that suits literally any playstyle. It is phenomenal stuff, man. I can't say that enough. There are risks with each option you choose and don't choose, providing that sense of mystery and exploration and risk the story was going for as well. I don't have a single issue with the level design at all. Talos 1 is built pretty much flawlessly in my opinion. It's one of, if not the best, semi-open world games that I've ever played and explored, and is easily one of the most memorable worlds I've played. Now I mentioned there are abilities you can unlock, and that is done through a skill tree as you collect neuro mods. You have a bunch of abilities like hacking, improving health kits, upgrading your weapons, etc, etc. I don't want to spoil too much, but you can also get a little alien in Prey, which I know this is going to annoy a lot of people, but I didn't use any of the alien abilities in my playthrough. It just didn't feel right to use them for me, but I guarantee to anyone who might play Prey, the level of choice in Prey will blow your mind. The level design accommodates any playstyle, and if you want to go full on wacky with the alien abilities, go for it, because there are a lot of choices in here. Not only is there a skill tree, but there's a few weapons you can unlock and customize, like a pistol or shotgun or even a glue gun that I won't speak on too much because it's better you experience it rather than be told what it can really do. This video is going to be over 15 minutes long at this rate, so let me wrap it up. Cheers for sticking to the end, by the way, anyone that's lasted. I see you in my analytics, I track it, thank you. Prey, all in all, is a phenomenal game with some of, if not the best level design I've ever experienced. Sure, the combat can be infuriating at times if you don't constantly collect items, but once you figure that out and how the game works and experiment, you will have one hell of an experience. Enemy types are a mix of really cool and overly frustrating, but despite that, the gameplay is simply addictive and almost perfect. The ending may not stick the landing, or at least the canon one, but the story and world building provided will make your imagination go wild. Prey is one of my favourite games that I've played all year and is without a doubt going to be a cult classic in a few years' time. So if it wasn't obvious, I absolutely think you should buy Prey in 2022, if it sounds like your kind of game. Thank you for watching.